Today, we're going to be looking at using long division to solve some of our division problems. Now, first of all, division is just sharing an amount equally, okay? In today's lesson, we're going to focus on looking at long division with no remainders. And there are 5 steps that I would like you to remember when we are using long division. Step number 1 is to divide. Step number 2 is to multiply. Step number 3 is to subtract. Step number 4 is to bring the next number down. And step number 5 is to go all over again. These 5 steps are really going to help us when we're looking at using long division. Right, so let's look at our first question. Our first question is going to be 132 divided by 6. So I've got 132 divided by 6. And first of all, I'm just going to introduce you to some vocabulary, some technical mathematical vocabulary. So this first number is referred to as the dividend. The next number is referred to as the divisor. And our answer is referred to as the quotient. Okay, so we've got a dividend, a divisor, and a quotient. Now, we're going to be using long division. So the first thing that we need to do is put our number into something that we call the bus stop. Okay, and it looks something like this. Now, when we have a bus stop, our dividend will always go inside the bus stop, and our divisor will just go outside our bus stop. So we've got 132 divided by 6. Now, step number 1 says to divide. So the first thing we're going to do is divide. So we're going to see how many times does 6 go into our first number, which is 1. Now, 6 doesn't go into 1, so we're just going to write down 0. Step number 2 is to multiply. So we're going to multiply our top number by the number on the side. So 0 times by 6. Anything times by 0 is always going to be 0. So we're just going to write down a 0 over here. Step number 3 is to subtract. So we're going to subtract both of these numbers together. So 1 take away 0 equals 1. Now we can move on to step number 4, which is to bring the next number down. So I'm just going to draw a little arrow to bring the next number down, making it 13. And then step number 5 is to go all over again. So now we're going to check how many times does 6 go into the number 13, because this is our new number. So how many times does 6 go into 13? Now I know if I counted my 6s, I can go 6, 12, and then I can't go any higher than that 2 times. My step number 2 is to multiply. So I need to do 6 times by 2, which is 12. And I put my number over here. Step number 3 is to subtract these numbers together. So 13 take away 12 is 1. Step number 4 is to bring the next number down. So I'm going to bring the next digit in my number down. Step number 5 is to go all over again. So now I'm going to see how many times does 6 go into 12. 6 goes into 12 twice. So I'm going to put my 2 over here. Step number 2 is to multiply. 6 times by 2 is 12. Step number 3 is to subtract both of these numbers together. 12 take away 12 equals 0. Step number 4 is to bring the next number down, but as you can see, I've run out of digits to bring down, therefore my division has come to a close. Another telltale, which shows us that our division has stopped, is that I've reached the number 0, meaning that there's nothing left to share equally. So I know that 132 divided by 6 equals 22. So the quotient is going to be 22. Right, we're going to try another question, but this time we're going to look at dividing a 4-digit number by a 2-digit number. Right, so the next question we're going to look at is 3,296 divided by 32. And as you can see, my 3,296 is my dividend, 32 is my divisor, and I'm trying to work out what my quotient is going to be. And again, I'm going to use long division to solve my problem. So I'm going to draw my bus stop. I'm going to put my dividend inside my bus stop, so 3,296. And I'm going to put my divisor outside my bus stop, which is 32. Now that I've got my question inside my bus stop, I can start using my steps. So step number 1 is to divide. So I need to see how many times does 32 go into my first number, which is 3. And 32 doesn't go into 3, therefore I'm just going to write 0. Step number 2 is to multiply what's on the side by the top. So 32 times by 0 is 0. Step number 3 is to subtract. So 3 take away 0 is 3. Step number 4 is to bring the next number down. So the next digit is going to come down and that will create 32. Step number 5 is to go all over again. So now I need to see how many times does 32 go into 32. So 32 goes into 32 once. So I'm going to write down 1 over here. Now I need to multiply. So 32 times by 1 is 32. Step number 3 is to subtract. So 32 take away 32 equals 0. Step number 4 is to bring the next number down, which is 9. And then step number 5 is to go all over again. So now I need to see how many times does 32 go into 9. Now 32 can't go into 9, so I must just write my 0 over here. Step number 2, 32 times by 0, which is 0. Step number 3, subtract. 9 take away 0 equals 9. Step number 4 is to bring the next number down. So I'm going to bring my 6 all the way down. And that will give me 96. Step number 5 is to go all over again. So we're back to step 1. And step number 1 is to see how many times does 32 go into 96. So 32 goes into 96 3 times because it's 32, 64, 96. So I'm just going to put 3 at the top. Now I need to multiply what's at my top by my side. So 3 times by 32 is 96. I'm going to write 96. Step number 3 is to subtract. 96 take away 96 equals 0. Step number 4 is to bring the next number down. But as you can see, I haven't got any more digits to bring down. And I've also reached 0 down at the bottom. So there's nothing left to share. I've now shared 3,296 between 32 people equally. So I know that 3,296 divided by 32 gives me the quotient of 103. So just a quick recap before we go over one last question. Remember that when you're dividing, you must put the dividend inside the bus stop, you must put the divisor outside the bus stop, and then you follow those 5 steps, which is step number 1, divide, step number 2, multiply, step number 3, subtract, step number 4, bring the next number down, and step number 5 is to go all over again. So let's look at one last question together, and then you guys can have a go at trying some other questions from a worksheet. The next question we're going to look at is 4,741 divided by 11. Right, so I've got 4,741, which is my dividend inside my bus stop, and then my divisor, which is 11, outside my bus stop. And I've got to start with step 1. So I've got to work out how many times does 11 go into 4. Now 11 doesn't go into 4, so that's going to be 0. Step number 2 is multiplication. I need to do 11 times 0, which is a 0, because anything multiplied by 0 is always going to be 0. Step number 3 is to subtract. 4 take away 0, which equals 4. Step number 4 is to bring the next number down. So I'm going to drag my 7 down, making it 47. And then I've got to go on to step number 5, which is go all over again. So now I've got to see how many times does 11 go into 47. Now 11 goes into 47 4 times, because 11 times 4 is 44. Multiplication, 11 times 4 is 44, so I'm just going to put that over here. Step number 3 is to subtract both of these numbers. So 47 take away 44, which equals 3. Step number 4 is to drag the next number down. So I'm going to drag my 4 all the way down, leaving me with 34. Now I've got to check how many times does 11, my 11 go into 34. 11 goes into 34 3 times, because 11 times 3 is 33. So that's step number 2. Step number 3 is to subtract both of these numbers. 34 take away 33 is 1. And my next step, which is number 4, is to drag the next number down, which makes it 11, and then I need to do step number 5, which is to go all over again. Now I need to see how many times does 11 go into 11. 11 goes into 11 once, so I'm going to put 1 over here. Step 2 is to do 11 times 11, which is 11. Step number 3 is to subtract them together, so 11 take away 11 equals 0. Step number 4 is to drag the next number down, but I haven't got another number, so I'm unable to drag down, which means my division is complete. And I've also reached 0, so I can't divide any more into that number. So my answer to 4,741 divided by 11 is 431. So there we have it. We've looked at using long division to solve our division problems. Now I know we didn't cover long divisions with remainders, but I will save that for another video. So my top tip for you is going to be, whenever you do long division, follow those 5 steps. Step number 1, divide. Step number 2, multiply. Step number 3, subtract. Step number 4, bring the next number down. And step number 5 is to go all over again. Right, so there we have it. This is how you can solve your division problems using long division. I know I haven't covered looking at division with remainders, but I will cover that in another YouTube video. So my top tip for you when it comes to using long division are those 5 steps. Step number 1, divide. Step number 2, multiply. Step number 3, subtract. Step number 4, bring the next number down. And step number 5 is to go all over again. If you check out the description box below, you'll find a link to a free worksheet created by me where you can have a go at solving some more division problems. Please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe.